Welcome to today's webinar, The Intro to Farming Will Make You Millions with MAPS coach Scott Cumin. Please note this webinar is being recorded and you will receive access to this webinar recording today in an email. If you have any questions, please type those into the questions box located in your webinar taskbar. Following the webinar today, if you have questions for us, you can always email us. Our email address is fasttrack@kw.com. That's FASTTRACK@kw.com. And that's all for me, so Scott, take it away. Scott, I'm not hearing your audio. Please bear with us for a second as we get Scott onto the webinar audio. Just 1 second. Hey, Scott, are you on the webinar with us?
All right, and welcome everybody.
There you go.
Believe we're getting started now. Hi, I'm Scott Cumin, and I'm with you here to chat a little bit about farming. And I want to give you a brief little caveat. I have not used this GoToWebinar in quite some time, but I want to give you a little feedback or a little background on us. We've been farming for quite a while. We've been farming multiple zip codes. Our main farm in 85212 is a zip code, and 85209 on my zip code out here in Mesa. We've been farming. This is our 18th year of sending monthly newsletters through the mail. So we do direct mail, hit every single mailbox on those routes, and we do it consistently. And last week we got an award for being the top agent / team in the city of Mesa. I've had the award 2 years. We've won for 2 years now. So we sell more homes by transaction and by volume than anyone else in Mesa. Now Mesa is bigger than Atlanta or Miami or St. Louis, but we market to a little section down in the corner, and we market to a couple zip codes down there. We've got 4 zip codes total that we market to in the city, all on the east side. But we've marketed 2 for 18 years now. We've done it consistently, and we do sell a lot outside of our market area. So we do well also in cities like Gilbert and Queen Creek and Chandler. We're not really mailing to all those places. And at that same awards thing, we found out we got that we were the top realtor for all of the Southeast Valleys, all those communities. We sold more homes than anybody else. Now you go to the other side of Phoenix. So the Southeast Valley is the southeast part of Phoenix Metro. Go out to the other side of the valley and no one's ever heard of us. Like Kenny who? And we've sold a lot of stuff out there, but we don't market out there. We don't have a lot of flow over out there. Now if we marketed through TV and radio, that might be a little bit different. but we're okay with people only hearing or knowing about us down here in the area that we market to, because that's really our focus. That's what we've been investing in, and that's why we farm, because we focus on hyper local direct mail and hyper local activities. Now, we also do open houses, door knocking, those kinds of things. But we tend to do them slightly different than a lot of other agents. If you think about your open houses and your door knocking, if you're doing that, these are great ways to do business and to generate business. But the question is, where are you doing and how are you doing them? Are you doing them in every single neighborhood of your geographic area, the big metro area that you're in, or your MLS? Are you doing it in all those places? Are you door knocking around your open house or your listing? Are you if you're doing calling, are you prospecting to every single person in your MLS? What we call that shotgunning. And a lot of agents do that. Tons and tons of agents do that. Tons of successful agents do that. And it's called the shotgun approach. And you go, okay, I'm going to hit this area today. I'm going to hit this area tomorrow, and hit this area way over there the next day. And they're doing the activities. They're doing great activities, but they're not focusing those activities in a tight geographic area. And a lot of them are getting great results. But can you imagine what the response would be like for door knocking? If every door that you knocked on, you weren't just introducing yourself, but instead you were putting a face to a brand that the consumer was already aware of. And I'm talking about agent-centric brands. We're a part of a great global brand with KW, but that agent-centric brand, what if you weren't introducing yourself, but you were continuing that conversation? Can you imagine what the results of those activities would be if they were paired with a consistent brand presence? Because knocking on doors is great. We do a lot of it here on our team, but if they're not ready to hear your message, I mean, if they're not thinking about buying or selling real estate right now, when they are, they're not going to remember who you are. You're gonna be lost in a sea of random realtors. So what if the activity of knocking on doors wasn't your only means of marketing to that future buyer and seller there, but was just a piece of a focused and consistent marketing strategy to brand yourself in their mind as the local market expert? And so that's where farming comes into play. Marketing and focusing on specific geographic areas for the purpose of selling real estate better than anyone else in that area, and selling way more than anybody else in that area. So we're talking about being locally focused, with the word local being defined as your farm area. Could be a neighborhood, could be a city, could be a zip code, might be half a city, the east side, west side, uptown, downtown, whatever you decide it'll be. In the MAPS course that we teach, we teach how to choose that farm. And sometimes there's been people that have farmed in the past. Sometimes you wonder, how did that community get its name? Well, sometimes it comes down to a real estate agent that was just deciding to farm that area and didn't have any real way of communicating which area they were farming, so they just gave an area of town a name, and it stuck with that. So we're going to teach you how to choose your farm in our course next week. But when you're farming, you're just focused just on that farm. And we'll do business outside of our farms because buyers are going to come our way who are looking to leave the farm. And then there's people that are interested in one of the listings in our farm, but we may find them something somewhere else. We've got a community that's south of where we farm that it's a little bit further of a drive, and so the price point is a little bit lower as a result. So we'll get people that we meet because they come to one of our open houses in our farm, but they can't afford to buy in that farm. We can find them a great house just south, and so we do a ton of business down there, do absolutely no marketing down there. And that's one of the cool things about farming too. And we get referrals, and other business comes our way because, you know, people people love to work with us. But as far as marketing goes, we're going to pretty much put all of our eggs in one basket. We're paying attention to where we are in everything that we do. And that basket is our farm, that farm area. We're going to focus our dialing, our pay-per-click, Zillow marketing. If we're going to do anything in print, like newspapers or something, we're going to focus it all in that area. Everything is focused geographically. So I want to give you a definition of farming that we tend to go with, and it's this. Farming is the consistent, ongoing, and repetitive marketing of your name to a consistent market, so that when anyone in your market thinks of real estate, the first thing that comes to their mind is you. I'll give that to you again. Farming is a consistent, ongoing, and repetitive marketing of your name to a consistent market, so that when anyone in your market thinks of real estate, the first thing that comes to their mind is you. So we've got a couple very important words in there. Consistent is by far the biggest one, and that's why it's bold. Bold means big, it's important. Pay attention to that word, you know, consistent, ongoing, repetitive. We're going to be consistent in our marketing, and we're going to be consistent on who gets it. It's the same people are going to get it over and over and over again. And the reason is science. The reason is psychology. Our goal of marketing with a farming mindset is branding. It's to instill in the minds of the consumer that real estate equals you. Real estate equals you. And we talk a lot about psychology in our course. And some people choose to send out a just sold campaign, and they call it farming. A true farmer has a loftier goal. We want to see it so that whenever anyone in our geographic target area asks themselves, who should we use as our realtor? We want our name to be the first name that comes to their mind. Now, it may not be possible for them to do that. They may have Uncle Phil is a realtor, and everybody says if you don't use him, you can't come to Christmas anymore. We understand that. But we want our brand name to be the first brand name that comes to their mind before Uncle Phil's. That's the goal of farming, to be the first in mind in your target area. And so we're going to do a few things to get us where we want to be. We're going to choose our farm, and we're going to be purposeful about it. We don't want to choose our farm because, oh, I love that neighborhood. We want to do it from a business mindset. We want to look at the P&L and make sure that all makes sense, not just now, but in years from now. So we're going to choose our farm. We're going to learn about branding and get that. We're going to master that concept and positioning. We're going to set up a marketing plan that fits us and fits our farm, and we're going to do some purposeful activities on a regular basis to not only solidify our farm, but solidify our relationship with people there and become a real person and not just a brand. We want to do stuff on a regular basis in our farm to know our farm on an expert level, both non-real estate stuff and real estate stuff. We want to connect with local businesses and organizations within our farm. We want to effectively farm niche groups and past clients and connect people with people offline and online. We're going to talk a lot about branding when we discuss farming, because that's why we farm. That's why we farm. Branding is positioning our product in a specific category, so that when people think of that category, the reticular activators remind them of our brand. Now, I'm going to need a volunteer in just a second. So if you have a microphone and you're okay being a volunteer and talking with me for just a couple minutes, I think you can raise your hand, or you could just jump into the questions there and say, I volunteer, and we'll get you on there in just a second. But I want to cover this definition again. Branding is positioning our product in a specific category so that when people think of that category, their reticular activators remind them of our brand. We want to be first in mind, and so we're going to work towards that through activities and marketing that's going to accomplish the scientific and the psychological goals that we have in branding strategy. So I want to talk real briefly, a little overview of how the consumer's mind works, and I want to try something out. I'm going to look and see if anybody raised their hand. I don't see anybody raise their hand. Do I get one volunteer? Oh, I got some hands there. I got some hands there. And let's see, I'm just going to pick one at random. Brian Cooper. Hey, Brian, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
Brian, I can't hear you. Are you muted on your own phone?
I am not muted on my phone. Can you hear me?
And I
can hear you, Brian.
Scott,
can you hear me?
Oh, you all can hear him. Okay, so that's fine. Everyone else can hear him, but me. So that's unfortunate, but we'll still be able to do this. So if everybody could grab a piece of paper, and Brian, you grab a piece of paper too,
Right.
and scratch a piece of paper, backside of something, just to jot a few words down here. And I'm going to name off 8 things, and I want you to write down the first brand that comes to your mind, okay? And Brian, we're going to go over your answers here in just a second. I have no idea why I can't hear you, but that's all right. So our first category here, so you're going to do the first brand that comes to your mind. Fast food. Just everybody write down the first thing that comes to your mind for fast food. I'm going to go through these kind of fast.
Okay.
Discount retailer. Discount retailer. Soft drink. First thing that comes to your mind. Coffee house. Beer. Search engine. Online bookstore. And realtor. This will be tricky because everybody else can hear him, but I can't. So if somebody could just type his answers here, and we'll see what happens there. So I'm gonna go down the list here, and Brian, for the first one, I have McDonald's.
So do I.
What does Brian have?
McDonald's.
He has McDonald's
All right.
as well.
For the second one, I've got Walmart. What does Brian have?
Costco.
Oh, we got some Costco's in there. Costco's getting a little bit of brand share. Looks like a little mind share going on. All right. For soft drink, I have Coca-Cola.
Coke. Yep, I have Coke.
Coke. All right. For beer, we've got our coffee house. We got Starbucks.
Yep, I have Starbucks too.
And we got Budweiser.
I have Miller.
Search engine, we got Google.
I have Google.
And then we got Amazon. And for real estate agent, we let you always have your own name in there. So we got everything there, right?
Everything.
Did we match everything with Brian?
Nope.
In most cases, we're usually about 7 or 8, and I'm seeing that a lot of people are posting what they had on theirs, and it all looks the same. And let me tell you why that's the case. I'm going to mute you, Brian. It was great hearing your voice. I don't know what happened there, but most people are going to answer most of those like that. Now, Pepsi wishes more people would say Pepsi. Now, I'll be honest, the first thing that comes to my mind for soft drink is not Coke, it's Diet Coke, because Diet Coke is better in so many ways. You know, there's a lot of people that Target wishes they were on there. With Burger King, they wish they were named, but for the power of branding is these brands have been imprinted. And so imprinting a brand, it means that in the minds of your market, the brand equals the category. So when people think of a soft drink, they think of Coke. There's some places in the country where you walk up to a Pepsi machine. I think back in high school in our band room, I was a band nerd. In our band room, we had a big old Pepsi machine. Everybody called it a Coke machine. There's places in the country that's the case. And we've seen it on a big scale too. You think about facial tissue. How many people call them Kleenex and don't even call it facial tissue? Even if Kimberly Clark didn't make it. If you've got clear tape that you got from Walmart, and it's the Walmart brand, you're still going to call it Scotch tape, even though it wasn't made by 3M. And there's a reason for that, and it comes down to basic psychology. So Ivan Pavlov, he won the Nobel Prize for playing with drooling dogs. And he did studies where he discovered that the dogs drooled before they were giving food. If he coincided feeding them with ringing a bell, then he found that they would start to drool when they heard the bell. And then he finally got to the point where he didn't even put food out, just rang the bell, and the dog would salivate. He was able to control the dog's salivary glands by ringing a bell. And so there's a lot of psychology that comes along with that. And those of us in marketing, we picked up on the same concept. And now we control the minds of the people that we want to reach. We learned about those reticular activators from Pavlov. So reticular activators are visuals, are the visual stimuli, they're the smells, they're the sounds, they're the taste, all that stuff that reminds us of something that we've experienced in the past. I don't know if you've ever smelled something and thought back to third grade, or heard a song on the radio and thought back to high school. My grandma, we'd go over to her house. She always had the 2 liters, never cans, never bottles or anything. And it was Coke. And so we'd go over there. Yeah, you want a soda? Yeah, I'll take a soda. And she'd give me a Coke, and she'd put it in a glass with ice cubes and pour it in there from the 2 liter. And at home, we always had Diet Coke. That's what we had. We had a bunch of hypoglycemics in our family, and so we had the Diet Coke, and so to this day, if I go to Chili's and they give me the wrong order, and I order a Diet Coke and they give me a Coke and it's in a glass and there's ice cubes floating on there, and the taste of that with the sound of the cubes and the feel of the glass, I go right back to Grandma's house, and I can picture everything in her kitchen and how it's laid out there. It's because my reticular activators are firing up. It's just basic psychology that makes us remember and sometimes makes us have an emotional feeling tied in with that. So our brand is our identity. It's our personality to the consumer. It's not only what they remember, but it's what makes them remember us. And so we want to take advantage of a psychological concept called reticular activation to make sure that when they think of a brand category, and we saw a whole bunch of brand categories there, but when they think about a brand category like real estate, that the first thing that they think of is our brand. We want to be the first realtor that the people in our farms think of. So NAR did a study. We're going to cover a couple studies here so you see some numbers. They found that sellers interview one realtor 64% of the time. 64% of the time. Now, if they interview 2 realtors, it's only 17% of the time. Lining up 3 or 4 and voting them off the island, that just doesn't happen very much at all. It's most of the time it's just one agent. Because a bunch of us are great with our scripts, right? We can convert if we can get in the door. Got a good chance of converting. So most sellers will list with the first agent that they interview. So with that in mind, do you see how important becoming first in mind is? 64% of sellers list with the first agent they interview. So you have to be that agent. You need to be the first realtor that they think of when it comes time to buy or sell real estate. And door knocking without a consistent reinforcement of the brand isn't going to have that level of return that the same activities that are coupled with farming and that consistent branding is going to do. I mean, if you have no brand presence in an area and you're door knocking, and those people, you have a great conversation, but they have no interest in buying or selling right now. When he gets a new job and he has to go and move, they're not going to remember you. But if you have a brand presence, even if they're not wanting to buy or sell right now, knocking on the door and talking puts a face and a voice and an emotional experience to a brand that they already remember. And that just reinforces the imprint of your brand on their mind, so that when they are ready to buy or sell, they'll think of you first. And you'll have been in front of them before and after that door knocking activity with marketing materials that aren't ads, but they're items of value. So your phone number, your email, your website, maybe you're sitting on the side of their fridge. They'll have all that when they're ready to sell. I mean, when you door knock as a standalone lead generation activity, you're going to see some fruit, but you're hoping that they're ready to sell or even thinking about it. But if they're not, even if you make a great impression, when they are ready, even if they remember your face, they're not going to remember how to get a hold of you. When you door knock in conjunction with farming, those connections are so much stronger. And when they are ready to buy or sell, they may not even need your marketing material. They'll know how to find you anyway. I mean, we can have the best buyer site. We can have great SEO. We can do great social media. We can have the world's best mobile app. You can have all the bells and whistles. But if the reality of the situation is that 64% of sellers will list with the first agent that comes to their mind, the rest are just tools to get the business of the other 36%. I don't think anybody wants to limit their business to only 36% of what the potential is. So we have to make sure that all of our branding is strong enough in our farm area so that whenever someone in the farm thinks about real estate, they think about us. Branding's huge. We found that in our farm, because of our brand recognition from continued farming, that there's people in our community that think all of the for sale signs in our farm are our listings. I don't know how that happens. People call us on other agents' listings. Even though the other agent's listing sign has their number on it, they call us asking for questions. People still call us on other agents' listings because we're the first thing that they think of when they think of real estate in our farm. That's not the case 20 miles away. We're not branded to them. But to those in our farm, when those synapses in the brain are firing up real estate, the response to their gray matter is the Kenny Klaus team. So we farm for a lot of reasons. You know, we build a trusted audience, an audience that trusts our brand, helps us market in a lot of different ways. Here's some other stuff. More stats from the NAR. We give them a lot of money, so they give us some stats every now and then. But they did a study. 83% of sellers said that they would use their agent again, and 83% of buyers said they would use their agent again. But when we look down the road, 2, 3, 4, 7, 12 years down the road, they didn't. Only 28% of sellers used an agent from a previous transaction. Only 11% of buyers did. Now, what's crazy, that buyer stat, they're in the house that we sold them. They're in there and they're not using us to list it. Think about all those other leads that are out there. Conversion rates on internet leads. We were talking with Zillow and they're 3%. That's pretty good. Yeah. Conversion rates on open house contacts, and I like the conversion rates better on referrals and repeat business. Because it converts at a much higher rate. We want repeat business. Repeat business is way better than a referral. You might still have to earn the trust of a referral, but repeat clients, they already believe in you. But according to the NAR study, most of the sellers, most of the buyers apparently forgot who their agent was. I can see arguments on that seller stat because people move out of the area, But the buyers, they're living right there in the house that we sold them, and they forgot who their agent was. So we farm to stay in front of our buyers and sellers outside of our normal drip campaigns, follow-up emails. But we still want to farm our past clients, but part of that is just consistently being in front of them in their own neighborhood. Now that gap between 83% and 28%, that gap between 83% and 11%, That's where the opportunity lies in farming. Yes, some people will still go back with their agent, but you can see here it's not a big number. Not a big number. So we want to be there in the gap. Okay. And one of the coolest things is that farming creates an audience, because we're sending them stuff, we're sending them items of value. So hopefully they're not just throwing it away because they're looking at it. We like to send stuff, and I'm going to show you our newsletter here in just a minute. We like to send stuff that's not real estate related, so that if they're not thinking about buying or selling real estate, they still engage with our brand. And so we create this audience that positions us over time as a local market expert, which gives us some other psychology that we talk about in the course. But you're known not just for knowing about real estate, but knowing everything about that geographic area. You'll know when the new parks are built, road closures, upcoming local events, schools. You're the local market expert. And when you have an audience, it makes it easier and more attractive for your farm agents to listen to you, for them to trust you, for them to try your services. And so when you're doing classes or seminars that are geared toward the consumer, or you're helping promote somebody else's events, your database becomes very effective and very responsive because you've consistently built trust over time. Now, NAR did another study, because you know we got to have those. They asked consumers what they're looking for. They didn't ask the realtors. They asked consumers, and this is what they said. They're looking for honesty and integrity. That's what they want in an agent. Knowledge of the process, responsiveness, knowledge of the market, communication skills, knowledge of the area, and tech skills down to 37. I just have to point that out because a lot of agents are freaked out because they feel like they always have to have the most recent tech and stuff. 37% right there. But notice those ones in red. They want knowledge of the market, knowledge of the area. And there's so many agents that cannot provide that because they're shotgunning all over the area. And farming agents know that area well. They know the market well. They know the specific market to that neighborhood. So people are looking for a great agent. All the rest of the stuff, that just goes with the great agent. They want a great agent who knows the local market and the local area. So we want to give the consumer what they want. So let me show you what we send out. And this is what we mail. This is not the only effective way to farm. In fact, our different farms, we have different mailers. I'll show you a couple examples. But we do mail differently to different farms because farming is not a cookie cutter thing. Okay, we have a lot of people that say, "Well, how can I just pay somebody to do my farming for me?" Because it's most effective when it's geared specifically for that farm area. So we've had farms with 8-page newsletters, and that's what this is an example of here. 8-page newsletters. Some have 2 pages. Well, 4 pages because you had one piece of paper folded in half. We have postcards. I'll show you that in a minute. But yeah, farming's not cookie cutter. You need to mail something that connects with your community, and sometimes you might have to do a little bit of trial and error to make sure you're doing what's perfect for them. And so this is an example of some of the stuff that we send. We do a front page that's kind of geared toward the month. We do a little teaser on the front to get them to open it. We always have real estate stuff right in the middle where we talk about what's new on the market. We have some new listings. We have recent sales. We have some real estate stats sometimes. We kind of give the basics all the time, change up a little bit of some of the other stuff. But we hyper-local content, stuff that applies to the people here. So this is one from last July, and you'll see that there's the opportunities to see fireworks in those different cities. So Mesa, Chandler, Apache Junction, and Gilbert, those are the places that you can do fireworks. And then we've got a little map of the area and showing some new developments that are happening. So this is July 2017, and you can see that there is a news article there, or a little highlight there about DuPont Fabros Technologies building a data center in Elliott Road Tech Corridor. The newspaper just printed the article today on that. So we were telling our community about it in July of 2017. The newspaper just had an article this weekend on that. And so you can see that we're more hyper-local than the local newspaper, because the local newspaper covers the whole metro area. We're letting people know about things that matter specifically to them, which may not matter at that point to the valley as a whole. So some of this stuff doesn't always get media attention in the news. And so here's some other articles that we've done recently. I think the air cargo, our local airport here in our farm, it's going to be a international air cargo hub. And so Mexican and U.S. customs will both be in there. So it's going to bring a lot of business to our area. This month, the one that just went out, we had spring break. Here's some fun educational things to do. And I'll tell you what, when you're researching for content in your farm, it's beneficial. So I didn't even know about this idea museum thing. And I didn't know that it was free from noon to 5 on March 4th. So I'll let you guess what I did with my kids yesterday. Took them over there. So I found out about that when I was just looking up stuff in the farm. Now it is snail mail. Some people are asking if it's snail mail or if it's email based. We mail it direct to every door on our routes. People say, what if you don't have a team? We cover a lot of that stuff in the course, going into detail how to get those things done. A lot of agents will lean on high school students. That it helps them build up their portfolio a little part-time. It doesn't take a whole lot of time. How do you find content? People are asking. I drive around with a content mindset. I'm driving around. I'll go out and grab some lunch and go, that field, they're starting to grade that field. I wonder what that's for. Well, somebody else thought the same thing, and so I do a little research and find out what it's for, and then I tell the people about it. We use a local printer, Carrie, in how we print those. Local printers are often the best, but a lot of people get some good experiences from some internet ones too. With the bulk that we do, local printer works out the best. People say, how much time do you spend? Tim's asking, how much time do you spend writing it? We generally we do it all in 1 week, and with this one, it's about a day while we're doing a whole bunch of other things that we're doing. So let's see. Here's the real estate piece there. That's the centerfold of the 8-pager. So we've got some recent sales in there. We've got some of our listings. Some real estate information. Sometimes we have some infographics in there and things like that. Have another paid story on page 6 that we'll do. Pages 6 and 7 will have our partners in there, so we can help make sure that we're not the only ones paying for it. And then we always want branding on both the front and the back, so no matter how it lands on the countertop, that they'll still be exposed to our branding. So our newsletter, it's consistent front and back. We have school information in there. We used to do free classifieds. We don't anymore because it just got so big and everything was so outdated. People would be, I'm selling my desk, and then they post on Facebook, it's gone in an hour. So we stopped doing that. Community information like fireworks, fun events, fundraisers, recent sales and listings. We integrate our social media in with it as well. And then here's our postcard. And so this is 2 backs to it. So we generally always have the real estate information there, the infographic stuff, and then recent sales. We'll put Zillow reviews, sometimes coupons for local businesses. So it changes the layout slightly sometimes. And then on the other side, sometimes we do some calls to action, some ads type things. And then you see there that zip code that one was in was 85208, which is adjacent to our big farm. And so we ran that same story in theirs because it applied to them as well. So with farming, each piece builds on what we've been doing before. Every marketing activity or campaign makes all of the previous ones stronger, and it builds your brand even more. That's the joy of of farming. You know, if I send out a just sold postcard in my farm, and I'm farming, it's not a one-trick pony campaign. It's not just hitting them as long as it takes them to see it and chuck it. You know, when we send out just solds on our team, we're not only accomplishing everything that a just sold postcard does, but we're further imprinting our brand. We're giving it another punch in the minds of the consumers, adding to every other campaign that we've done, and doing one extra farming activity to put our brand first in mind, so that when they are ready to consider buying or selling real estate, we're going to be that one realtor that they can list or buy with. I want to give you, and I know some people had asked to put that slide up, so I did, but I want to jump over to this one. This is the Sales and Marketing Professional Association. They did a study, and they said when you're doing direct mail, and this also applies to telemarketing too. So they, when people have done this study, they've looked at direct mail, they've looked at phone calls, you know, the telemarketing, and the numbers were really, really, really close, which means it's probably scientific, you know. And so if we're doing direct mail, if you get a real estate deal off of the campaign, only 2% is going to be tied to the first piece they see. So only 2% comes off of just one piece. And if you look at most realtors, they're sending out one piece. They do a just sold, and then they move on to the next neighborhood. And those people never get another piece of mail from them again. So that means they responded to that piece and became a client after only seeing the first piece. Hardly ever happens. 4%, 2 pieces or more. 6% from 3 pieces or more. 10% from fourth piece. 81% of business you can expect from direct mail comes from at least 5 consistent pieces. If you took all the other 4 pieces, it took them all to be put in front of that 5th piece before the client became yours. Most agents send 1 piece. Those that are doing campaigns quit after the 3rd piece. That same thing goes for phone calls. Most agents quit after 3 phone call attempts, right? Be consistent and resilient, and you're going to reap the results. Now, we don't just mail. We do some other cool things. This is our water watcher. We go in a lot of detail on this on the court. I feel so bad just kind of blazing over stuff, but we only got an hour here. This is the water watcher tag. Now, there's 2 states that have a really, really high child drowning rate, and it's us in Arizona and Florida. Why? Because we have so many swimming pools, right? Both places are as hot as the sun, and so we got to get out of there and get in the mail or get in the water. But what we find is these kids, they're not being watched, and we wanted to do something about it. And so about it's probably been 5 or 6 years ago, we created these water watcher tags. And so we got some cardstock, printed on both sides of it, and then laminated them, poked some holes, got some lanyards. So we just Googled. I have no idea where we got these lanyards. It was so long ago. People ask me every single time. But we got probably about 500 of them, and we made 500 of these water watcher tags. We have a drawer that has hundreds of them still, and we still give these out. So we'll do a story every year. Hey, it's swimming time. You can get your water watcher tags. The concept is, if you've got a party, you've got a bunch of kids over at your house, we're going to make sure the kids are supervised all the time. And so we get the people these, and we say, this is how you do it. You make sure one person is watching the pool at all times. So if you're watching the pool, you got the water watcher tag, you put your drink down, you're focused on the pool. At the end of your 15, 20 minutes, somebody else gets it, right? And then we put the basic life support on the back. This is compression only. CPR makes it real easy. That's what they do out here in Arizona. But we give the people this. They can just drop our office anytime. They can pick it up. So all that cost, boy, it probably cost us about $200 to get all the lanyards and put all these things together. We've been milking this thing for like 6 years, and all we do is give it out. Another thing, so we have a 501c3 that we did. We created a nonprofit, and our agents contribute at closing. We've been able to do some really cool stuff. For those of you that are interested in that, you can see that at klausteencares.org. You can see what our charity does, some of the stuff that we've been able to do, some of the really cool stuff. And I'll tell you, we just did one yesterday. We had a school reach out, and this girl lost her mom. She was living with her mom. Her mom died suddenly, and she's a senior. And so they reached out, and we said, okay, well, what are her needs? And they let us know. Grandma and everybody moved back to Pennsylvania. Dad is still here, so she gets to stay with Dad until the end of the school year. But there was a lot of things that were needed to be taken. So we were able to take care of her car insurance until the end of the school year, some gas, a prom dress, prom tickets, senior photos, senior graduation announcement, that kind of stuff, to get her to the end of the school year and let her have her senior year as best as it can under the circumstances. It's cool stuff that we're able to do because of that. But one of the things here, so we made up bags, and so we've got tons of these grocery bags. And so when our agents are going out door knocking for open houses, so they're inviting people around there, and then other times when they're just door knocking, we put a little note on here that explains the food drive. If it's for an open house, we just put on the flyer, you can bring your canned food to the open house and drop it off there, or you can let us know. We'll come by. You just stick it on your front door. Let us know. We'll come by and pick it up, or you can drop it by our office. And so we've been able to collect tons, literal tons, like 3 tons of canned food for our local food banks, which is really cool. It softens the door knocking. We're very intentional, though, that if we're just door knocking, if it's not for an open house, if we're just door knocking, we're not doing marketing at that point. But we are exposing the brand, but we'll just go door to door for a food drive. But we're not going to market because that's kind of cheesy. We thought to use a food drive to market to people. But have we gotten listings off of food drive door knocking? Absolutely. Absolutely. So I wish that we could go into a little bit more detail. I'm going to answer questions here in just a second. But if this is a topic that you want to learn more about and you want to dive in deeper than we were able to do today, we do have our MAPS group coaching class, Farming Will Make You Millions. It's taught by me and Kenny. Most of the time it is me. But we go through all this stuff. We talk about why we farm. Some of the stuff we talked about today, we go in a little bit deeper as well. Choosing a farm, we really dive in from a business mindset. I'll give you a spreadsheet to use to look at some of those numbers and see what makes sense in choosing a farm, and some different techniques. So if you really love an area but it doesn't make business sense, how to make that work for you too. We spent 2 weeks diving into the psychology, how the consumer's mind works, and how to get that first in mindness. And then once we've got those concepts down, so we do cover those concepts, because those concepts are going to feed into all the rest of that course, is really diving into the how to do it. Somebody asked, is the class pertinent to single agent or to only teams? There's people that are taking that are farming a condo complex as a solo, people that are farming a community as a solo. So both solo and teams that have taken that course and have done well with it. So we go into hyper local marketing and looking in detail at our newsletters and some of the stuff that we're sending out, and talking about content in detail. We talk about farm marketing techniques, different activities that we do, different campaigns that we do outside of direct mail. We talk about prospecting in your farm. So we've got some scripts, some phone scripts. If you're a telephone prospector, then we talk about how those scripts change when you're prospecting within your farm, because again, you're continuing a conversation that your branding has already started, and you want to be a little bit more sensitive to people because you got a brand to maintain in that area. So we go into depth there. We talk about the farm route. That's how we go around and connect with the local businesses. And we talk about creating brand ambassadors, because we're going to create relationships in our community with people that have never used us for real estate and may never. Maybe they may be living in that house that they bought from somebody else, and they may never want to leave. And so we want them to refer us business. So how do we go about doing that? We talk about being a local market expert, all the things that you need to know on a regular basis to keep that going. Talk about niche farming. I talked a little bit on this call about how you build that audience, that trusted audience. So we're going to talk about some opportunities that we've done, that other agents have done, that they can take advantage of that captive audience and farm to groups within that. You know, one of the examples that we'll share in depth is, you know, after the short sale explosion, as we came out of that and started returning to a normal market, we noticed there's all those people that had gone through a foreclosure or short sale or bankruptcy, and we wanted to get them back into home ownerships. We created a program called Road Back Home, and we marketed that through through using our newsletters in our farm, marketing people we already had. We just, you know, changed up the message a little bit, and so we can farm to those niches within our community without it costing us any money, because we're already sending the pieces anyway. And then connecting online. How do we farm online? Some different techniques there. And so there is the information there if you'd like to be a part of that. And I'm going to jump in here and try to answer some of these questions. So I want to thank everybody for being on the call and for spending time with us. It was a nice group of people. Brian, wish I could have heard your voice, but yeah, I guess that's just how things happen. Christina wants to know, is it a webinar as well? No, the farming course, it is a phone call, and we use a Facebook group during the course of the whole 12 weeks. And so if there's things that you need to see, like handouts, like slides, anything like that, we send those before the call to the Facebook group, and then you can see those there. But everything is done over a call, so you can take the course while you're driving around or at the gym or things like that, and they do record all the calls. Do you layer your geofarming with Facebook ads? Absolutely, and that's what we dive into a lot in the Connecting Online, some different opportunities that we have there as well. Do you like Zillow marketing over our eEdge? We do not use eEdge, so I don't know that I can comment on that. We right now we use Boomtown as our IDX and stuff. We play the Zillow game. We do. One of the neat things about Zillow, I'll tell you now, is if you play the Zillow game and get your past sales and your reviews in there, then you show up really well in your farm area if you're doing repeat business. And so we find sellers that way without ads. That's playing the Zillow game, you know. Without ads, we find sellers find us on Zillow just because we put in our past sales and reviews. How often do you send mail outs? At least once a month. And I would say, you know, one of the things that if you're going to be farming, one of the best things to commit to is sending one piece a month for a year, committing to that budget. Is there a way to check if another agent is farming in the area you want to farm? Donna asked. And yes, and we go through that in week 2 of our course in detail. But yeah, you can look in the MLS. Is an easy way of just looking at those past sales within a year and seeing who's doing that and mapping that out. And that's one of the things that we want to do is we want to see if there's a dominant agent in that area. Do you think that stat would be the same for a 33 touch system to our sphere? Depends on if it's email or direct mail or handwritten notes. I think that all changes there. Email, if you look at your delivery rate, it's probably south of 40%, probably south of 30% on just an open rate of emails. And so that's going to come into play too, that, you know, they're not being touched if they're not opening the email. What is the average cost for your newsletter? Now we do send quite a few. Right now we're probably about 30,000 pieces a month. And so it drives it down. But we're also smart about how we do it. If we're doing when we did our 4-page, which is just a folded one piece, so it makes 4 pages, we did that on the same paper that we did on the newsletter. And so we can gang those together. And so if you're talking to your local printer, ganging is a good word to use if you're doing multiples. but sometimes you could just be smart about how you do it. And our average cost for a newsletter for the 8-page and for the postcard is not too much difference there, just based on the volume, because that 8-pager goes out to 20,000 homes. But it's right around 30 cents with printing, process, postage, getting it out there. And we talk in detail and explain. We use EDDM, which takes a little bit more time than I can explain right now. But we use EDDM. That's hitting every single mailbox on our route. How do you determine where to farm, and what does a conversation with a sponsor to partner with them on costs sound like? That conversation changes based on who the partner is. If it's a lender, chances are it's going to be a lower dollar amount than used to be, and probably than you're kind of expecting. But just have that conversation. Hey, would love to get your name out there a little bit more. How do you determine where to farm? Hey, Clarissa, I wish I could answer that in a real brief, but there's a lot of factors that come into play on determining where to farm. And we spent an entire hour on it during the course on just choosing that farm. How many homes are in one of the zip codes that we have, Bob? It changes for us. Some of them are smaller, some of them are larger. The two big ones that we do in one piece, and that's 19,000, I believe. How much time do you spend writing it? I think I answered that one. What if you don't have a team? Looks like a lot of work. What would you suggest for a single agent? Connecting with high school students, VAs, high school students is a great one, because you get these kids that are learning how to do journalism, and all they have in their portfolio is the school newspaper. Guess what? If you're sending out a monthly piece, you are a periodical publication, and it helps them get their portfolio. And so you can help them. There's a lot of farm agents out there that will do a sports thing with the high school sports, and they have a kid from the high school doing it. That kid graduates, by the way. He's got a portfolio. When they graduate, you're doing a piece on how you help them and how they've been doing this, and how writing for this newsletter has helped them, which is great. And let me see if there's any more. I'm scrolling up, and we're to all those answers. If you're doing direct mail, what happens with absentee landlords? Then the renters get it. Because when you're doing, when you're hitting every single mailbox on a route, when you're doing something like EDDM, you're not using the mail list. It doesn't say to the landlord. It just says, it just goes and lands. It's to the current resident. And so we're getting the landlords or the renters. And guess what? A good chunk of ours, it'll have purchasing versus renting. Stop paying your landlord's mortgage payment for them, and so we find buyers that way. Let me scroll down to the bottom. Oh wow, a lot more down there. Let's see. So we just had that question answered. Zillow's valuations aren't true and their data is bad, somebody pointed out, and that is very accurate. And so guess what? Every time their data is bad and they're calling me on a house, I get to tell them their data is bad. Come use my site, because my site is accurate. So we got all the scripts for Zillow. Where to start if you have a set budget and doing this for the first time marketing? Again, that's you want to set your budget for a year, and then answer that question based on what you can commit to on each month. How long did it take for you to start seeing results in your farm? If you're starting from scratch, what would you do first? Well, Gary Keller says if he was starting from scratch now, he would farm. How long did it take for us to start seeing results from the farm? Generally, you want to, we say commit to a year, because you may not see that GCI come in, especially if they're coming in on month 6 and get a new builder or something like that. You may not see that GCI coming in right away. Generally, you're going to want to about 4, 5, 6 months before you start to see any degree of consistency with farming, because it has to have those pieces. But we get calls on first pieces when we start a new farm. I can tell you that home valuation. So we have how much is my home worth in there. They go to that site. I can tell you those leads they'll come in. They're not ready to list right away, but I'm getting that contact info. But I can tell when the pieces hit. So I know they're roughly going around about the first of the month, but I can tell in the different zip codes, hey, 85209 landed today, because all of a sudden we get those notifications of the leads coming in. Virginia has not gotten confirmation. I sent something to Maps for you. They should be following up with you. I don't know that we'll ever change from Wednesdays, because that's the day that Maps gave us. But all the calls are recorded, and so if you can't commit to doing Wednesdays, all the calls are recorded. So not everybody is in the class live. Tim, I have to check on that number, but most people don't do 30,000 pieces at a start. You do want to ease into things just like anything else. How many sales are we doing a month? Last year we did 522, and farming is one of our top lead sources. It's about 30% of our business, along with our database, because we farm our database as well. And so those are our top ones. How much should you allow for initial cost outlay for the first year? Stan, that really depends on the size of your farm, but we dive into that stuff on the course. So I think, is it recorded? Do you see the screen? It doesn't matter, Alicia. We don't share the screen on the Maps program. It's just an audible call, and we put everything that you need to see on the Facebook group. We do talk about how to farm the database and some of the stuff that we've been doing, as far as Brian, about our top clients and referral partners, and we go into our K list a little bit too. So thank you all for being on the call. It was great. It was a blast. I hope everybody had some great experiences there. If you want to dive in deeper, I encourage you to jump into the Farming Will Make You Millions. It's just more of an opportunity to dive into the specifics, but really, some of the stuff that we covered today, hopefully that's useful to you. Have a wonderful day, and go on out there and sell some real estate.